To remake the scene from the Matrix in 2D, we need an enemy and a player that can dodge. So the first thing I decided to do was to create a new dodge animation for our 2D player. But there is one problem. 2D characters only have length and height, but the camera wasn't locked on a 2D perspective. A 2D perspective is supposed to look like this. You can see that there's one consistent angle, so yeah, that's a 2D perspective. But this is basically what the camera in this scene looks like. Notice how there are many angles. Those extra angles are useless for a 2D animation because with 2D we only need one angle.
But BleuShell, top down.
Alright, then you tell me. What the heck am I supposed to do with this? That means using Neo as a direct frame-by-frame model is not something we will do for the dodge. But if you want to see a bonus frame-by-frame animation of Neo, then keep watching. For now, this means that we have to improvise and be a bit creative. So we're gonna have to look at the way Neo moves and translate that onto, a 2D environment. However, I've noticed something important when observing how Neo turned from a human to a 90-degree pancake. After triangulating the vertex in the third dimension in the inverse of the power of 2.7, I have discovered something very important to share in regards to the animation. In order for Neo to dodge a bullet, he bends backwards. Really though, so that specific position helped me make the end frame for the dodge animation, so that's actually pretty useful. But keep in mind, we need to transition our animation from our initial starting point, which is this, our current idle animation, to our current end frame, our dodge animation. So making all those in-between frames might be pretty hard. Also, my player has a very interesting anatomy, so the animation might look weird, especially with the head. To fix that, I made sure that the head follows this simple curve.
Actually, BleuShell, this is a semi-inverse parabola.
The head follows this curve throughout the entire animation. Great, so we have the player and animation. What could go wrong? Nothing went wrong, actually. But the animation looks... well, it's one of the many animations of all time, so you know what? We never even made a dodge. We made this slide animation. Yeah, that was kind of lame. Also, stick to the end of this video, cause I use some other scenes from the Matrix to make more cool animations. Well, I mean, they're not that cool, but just stick to the end. And don't forget, we still need to make the enemy. For now, I want to add a few more things to our dodge animation. This is an agent. What does it do? Well, it has a blur dodge effect thingy, and that made me think, this is great inspiration for my game. So I got straight to work making a blur effect in our dodge slide animation. But you might be thinking,
Actually, particles would be easier to create and far more effective for creating a blur effect.
And using particles is easier.
Damn it! He got me! What do you mean? Damn, L! I've never been so humiliated in my life!
Anyways, this was actually pretty challenging to make without particles, and at first I tried to use translucent shapes of the player's head to create a blur effect, but that failed miserably. But am I really gonna struggle with a blur effect? I struggled with the blur effect.
It's never too late to use some particles.
Particles are a disgrace to humanity, and I will never use them. Alright, you don't have to bring that up. But then, I came up with another idea. And that's when I tried stacking semi-transparent frames on top of each other, creating a blurryish overlay. I had no idea if it would actually work though. And I think you guys can judge, but with our slide complete, we now need an enemy. In the Matrix, that would be an agent. Oh hey, those guys are important. However, I'm unfortunately way too lazy to make a custom sprite, so I'm going to retexture one of my old enemies. Introducing Agent Shield. And I know what you might be thinking if you watched any of my other videos.
This is clearly a contradiction.
So, you're not bulletproof, but see what happens when I shoot Agent Shield? Yeah, so Agent Shield can deflect bullets. So with our bullet dodge, bullet issue fixed, it's time to combine everything. For those of you who have a functioning attention span, congratulations, you made it to the bonus flip animation! So I took another scene of The Matrix where Neo does a wall jump and the camera has a 2D perspective, before being interrupted by Morpheus's chunky head. And that means I had to improvise some frames again. But since we finally have a 2D perspective, I can finally use a frame-by-frame model. So I got started turning Neo's positions into small green stick people. And I was so close to having a complete 360-degree flip. But, you know, issues happened. So instead of being creative and making up my own interpretation for the rest of the frames, I mean, like, who does that kind of stuff? I just decided to repeat some frames and rotate them. So all I needed to do was use my player's body parts as meat for these skeletons. But anyway, let's see how that turned out.
Wow, that flip was amazing. 10 out of 10, BleuShell.
And honestly, these animations were really needed in my game. Like, I spent like a good chunk of time just literally playing around with it, so yeah, it's pretty fun now. Not really, but I'll get to that later. Anyways, if you want to see a boss battle where I fuse 3 bosses together and force one of my... If you want to see a boss battle where I fuse 3 bosses together and force one of my friends to fight it, take the red video. Or, if you want to explore the origins of this game more, take the blue video.